At long last, former Attorney General Jody Wilson-Raybould was able to speak her truth. She did so for hours in front of a Justice Committee hearing that at times was a little bit tense. But Canadians finally got to hear, in Jody Wilson-Raybould's own words, how she alleges the Prime Minister's office and the Prime Minister himself pressured her into trying to block a prosecution of SNC-Lavalin. Now, as far as information that we learned from this case goes, there wasn't much that was new, but we did get a much more concrete example, in fact, several concrete examples from Jody Wilson-Raybould of how the months leading up to her demotion and ultimately her resignation from cabinet unfolded. She detailed 10 phone calls, 10 in-person meetings involving her, her chief of staff, and almost a dozen players in the Prime Minister's office, including, as I mentioned, Justin Trudeau himself. And all of these, which she's documented meticulously through emails, notes, phone calls, and in-person meetings, show that the government was trying to get her to take a particular decision, not because it was in the legal best interests of the country, but because it was in the interests of the Liberal Party of Canada. And this is something that Jody Wilson-Raybould said in her testimony she did not think was necessarily illegal. But even so, the question has not been throughout this case whether we're talking about illegality, but whether we are talking about a lack of ethics going up to the highest levels of the government. And what do we see in this? Justin Trudeau, according to Ms. Wilson-Raybould, citing himself as a Quebec MP as somehow being relevant to the legal jurisprudence of the SNC-Lavalin case. More concerningly, we have the Chief Privy Council Officer of Canada, Michael Wernick, supposedly the head non-partisan civil servant in Canada, running interference for Justin Trudeau in a political capacity. Justin Trudeau has managed to overtake the civil service of the country, and that's one of the most damning pieces of information that we get from Jody Wilson-Raybould's testimony. I happen to agree with Andrew Scheer here when he says that Justin Trudeau has lost the moral authority to lead. Over this affair, he's now facing his 5th ethics investigation. Remember, we're talking about the first Prime Minister in Canada's history to have already been found guilty of ethics violations, and that was, of course, for the Aga Khan billionaire island trip to the Bahamas. This is much more problematic than that, and I think Canadians are starting to see why. Now, Trudeau has gotten up and he said with a straight face,
I therefore completely disagree with the former Attorney General's characterization of events.
This is the same Prime Minister who in the past says that he and a woman in Kokanee just had different recollections of the same event. Perhaps this is another one of those examples. But one thing is for sure, Canadians cannot let this go. 8 months is a long time away, and there's a lot of things that Justin Trudeau is going to try to do to push this off of the table for Canadians. We can't let him get away with it. At True North, we're not letting the government get away with it, but we need your support to keep this work going. Please consider joining the Heritage Club or the Patriot Club by making a small monthly contribution, allowing us to keep doing the work we're doing for you. For True North, I'm Andrew Lawton.